Warning, this video contains graphic content. The following images and/or content may be disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Hey y'all, so this video will focus on DFSP, which is a rare sarcoma skin cancer that I was diagnosed with back in 2015. So July is Sarcoma Awareness Month, and I want to share my journey during July so that I could provide some resources or helpful information to anyone going through the journey of DFSP, and also provide some examples that show melanated skin that could be helpful to people of color. So let's get into it. So what is Dermatofibrosarcoma protuberans, better known as DFSP? It is described as being a rare type of cancer. It is a soft tissue sarcoma that develops in the deep layers of the skin. It is sometimes described as having tentacles that can grow into the surrounding fat, muscle, and even bone. DFSP is most commonly found in the torso, but can also be seen on the arms, legs, head, and neck. It has the tendency to reoccur in the same location after it is removed. However, it only spreads to other parts of the body in about 5% of the cases. DFSP most often starts as a small, firm patch of skin, which can be approximately 1 to 5 centimeters in diameter. The skin occasionally is flat. It can be purplish, reddish, or flesh colored, and the tumor typically grows very slowly, which means it can grow over months' time to years. And most times the sarcoma is flat, but it can become raised over time. So DFSP tends to affect people between the age of 20 and 50, but it has been diagnosed in people of all ages. There are about 1,000 cases diagnosed in the U.S. each year, and the tumors affect Black patients about twice as much as white patients. So in September of 2015, I was a sophomore in college, minding my business, but also trying to process the passing of my Aunt Deborah. So that was some sadness happening already. I had this bump on my back for years. I don't know a timeline, but it grew over time. It started out a pea size, very small, only affected if I pressed it or anything like that. It was on my lower back, so it was an easy spot for my pants or anything to rub against it and make it grow larger. And then it became the size of a golf ball, and that made it noticeable by anybody who saw my shirt raise up while I was at school or doing activities or whatever. So it started to become more noticeable, and it was like, well, you should have that checked. And not that I hadn't had it checked before, but no one knew what it was, and I didn't know what to do about it, so it just continued to grow. So I went to the doctor's office, actually went to the urgent care, and they thought it was a lipoma at first. Thought it was something they were going to be able to cut open and, squeeze all the parts out, and I was going to be, good to go. But they cut it open and found that that was not what it was, and they had no idea. So I had to be scheduled for a biopsy the next day. So the next day came, warning, graphic image approaching. So this is what they took out of my back here. If you look closely, you can see the raised bump a little bit. The pictures that I had of the bump prior to me having surgery were lost, so I don't have a photo of what it looked like prior to me having the surgery, but that was what they took out for the first surgery so that they could see what it was. So this was an outpatient surgery. I was awake for this procedure, which was, fine, but the fact that the bump had been cut open the day before made the area very tender, so the numbing process of the area was very painful. And the doctor said the next time I had a surgery, if I had to have a surgery the next time, that I would definitely be put to sleep. But once that process was over, it was fine. I had a sweet nurse that was sitting there with me. She talked me through the whole thing. Actually, the doctor talked me through the whole thing. It was actually a pretty nice experience, and that may be odd to say, but they did a great job. I didn't feel anything. And then I got to see what they took out. I saw it, and then I asked if I could have a picture of it, and the nurse sent me a picture, so that's how I got that. But if you look closely, if you go back and look, you can see some of the little tentacles that are in the flesh. So, yep, that was that. And this is how much, well, how large of an area and how deep of the area that they took out. So like I mentioned before, a lot of my photos from that time were lost. So if you look at this picture, where I have the red marks, that's about how large my scar was after this first procedure. So later on, I will explain how my scar looks now and why it looks the way that it does. So after that procedure was done, I think I stayed home for like the weekend, and then I went back to school, and I was recovering there. I was doing pretty well. I would just take a pillow to sit with in class, and that was pretty much it. It was almost, my 2 weeks were almost up as far as the healing process and going back to have my stitches removed. And then my parents showed up, and I knew something. So then they told me that they received the news from the doctor, and he told them that I had DFSP and that I would have to come back on the day that I was supposed to get my stitches out and have a second procedure so they could make sure that they removed all of the tentacles from the area to reduce the chance of the skin cancer growing back in the same spots. So at that time, I didn't know what to think because I didn't know what it was. My mom showed me the information that she was given from the doctor and the website, and I took a look at it, but I just didn't know what that meant for me. I didn't know what the recovery process would be like, so I was worried. I was sad, I cried, but yeah, I went on home and I got myself prepared for the second procedure. So these are the measurements for what was removed during the second procedure. For the first and second procedure, my loved ones were with me during that time. The bag that I have in the previous photo was given to me during that time. And my friends, people who knew, they were supportive, and it was really good to have because I needed it. I was put to sleep for the second procedure, and I had to go home to recover because the recovery time was a lot longer than the first procedure. I had a tube for the second procedure, and as you can see in this upcoming photo, I have the tube area circled, and then the scar is a lot larger because it removed a lot more from that area. After my what seems like a very long recovery time, where I had to stay home because I needed assistance until I was able to have my stitches removed and kind of help myself on my own. I needed help because I really couldn't see everything, so I had to make sure I took it easy and that everything was cleaned up and bandaged properly. So after my recovery, I went back to school, and I started back on my journey to finishing my degree. So, how are patients followed after treatment? So, you should continue to see your doctor or dermatologist. When DFSP or if it returns, it is often within 3 years of your treatment. So, during the first 3 years after treatment, people with DFSP should return for follow-up examinations every 3 to 6 months. After this 3-year period of thorough examinations happening, it is recommended for you to continue to pay attention to your body for the rest of your life. So, any skin changes that should warrant a visit to your doctor or dermatologist are things such as growth on the skin that does not go away within 2 weeks, changes in a scar, especially one caused by surgery or burn, or anything that is quickly growing or changing on the skin. It is not clear what causes DFSP, but things such as what I just mentioned before can cause it to reappear. And if you are or have been diagnosed with DFSP and you are pregnant, you may also have fast growing tumors. So this photo is how my scar looks today. And now we move into August of 2020, where I had reached my 3-year mark basically and thought that this section here that you see in these pictures was DFSP coming back. So I had to go to my doctor again because I couldn't find a doctor where I'm living. So I had to go back to my hometown and visit my doctor and have another biopsy done. And this time, because of COVID, I had to go through the procedure alone, and that was pretty scary, very nerve-wracking. But I stayed positive about it. The area had appeared and was not changing, had even grown more a little bit over the time period that I was monitoring it. So I knew that it was safer for me to have a biopsy done to find out what was happening versus taking any more time to see how it would respond on its own. The funny thing is the area started to look lighter like literally a day or two before the procedure. But like I said, it wasn't something that I needed to kind of play around with. I went ahead and wanted to go through with the procedure to see exactly what it was. So here I am, waiting to go back for surgery. Like I said, I was there by myself. My dad dropped me off, and I really just had the support of the nurses and doctors there. I was put to sleep for the procedure fairly quickly. I was rolled back. They had some good music playing, and I was told to count down from 10, and I was asleep in seconds. And then afterwards, my doctor woke me up, basically asking me how I was doing, and I stayed in recovery for a good little minute, it felt like anyways. And then they took me out in the wheelchair. I really don't remember a lot of the afterwards. But yeah, they took me out in the wheelchair, and I got in the car with my dad and went back to the house. It was a loaded day, I would say. If you know, then you know. But it was a long day. But I recovered through that. I stayed home again so that I could have help. And this was a good little journey with this biopsy. So these are the measurements of what was removed from the area under my right breast. And The recovery for this procedure, it was a lot. This is what the stitches look like. But over the time period of me having to put dressing on it, which is basically just putting Neosporin and gauze on the area, but I had to tape it down with surgical tape. So repeatedly doing that, it started to take my skin off every time I had to replace it. So I don't know how to describe the type of pain that caused, repeatedly having to do that. And there was no other way that I could keep the gauze in place. So there were a lot of tears. And during this time, I had just started my doctoral program. So I was doing school on Zoom, as I like to call it, computer school. And we were just, we were getting into things, and I was maintaining, keeping up with everything and work. But it was trying times. But here I am, being positive, just getting my work done, moving through the other things that were happening around this time, which basically, I lost a classmate that was in a master's program with me. We had literally just virtually graduated the month prior. So it was just a lot happening at one time. It was a lot to take in. But basically, the results were that it was an inflamed sweat gland. And I was like, that's it. Like, you sure? And I was just so happy to hear that. But this is what my stitches look like right after I had them taken out. And this is what my scar looks like now. Well, we have reached the end. Thank you for listening to my story. If you made it this far, any information on Facebook groups or direct links will be listed in the info box below. And I will see you in the next video.